It's 3 a.m. and you're wide awake. Your heart isn't racing, you're not anxious, you just opened your eyes. Your first thought is that something is wrong with you, but the real answer is far stranger. For most of human history, this was normal. This was expected. This was, for thousands of years, simply what a night looked like. You call it insomnia. Your ancestors called it the watch. Think about your night right now. You lie down once, you close your eyes once, you expect to stay unconscious for 7 or 8 hours straight, like a light switching off and back on. If you wake up in the middle of the night, you assume you're broken. You reach for your phone, you check the time with a kind of quiet panic. But this single unbroken block of sleep is not the human default. It is a modern invention, and the story of how you lost your other half of the night says more about the shape of your daily life than almost anything else you do. Start with the evidence. Historian Roger E. Kirch spent over a decade combing through diaries, court records, medical texts, and literature from pre-industrial Europe. He found something strange. Hundreds of documents, spanning centuries, casually referred to a first sleep and a second sleep, as if everyone already knew what that meant. Nobody explained the term. Nobody needed to. A diary entry might mention waking after first sleep to pray. A court record might describe a witness who woke between sleeps and saw a crime through the window. A physician's notes might recommend conceiving a child in the space between the two sleeps, when the body was rested but the mind was calm. This wasn't rare, this was the rhythm of the night. Picture it. You go to bed shortly after dusk because there is nothing else to do in the dark and candlelight is expensive. You sleep for 3 or 4 hours, then you wake, not in alarm, not in distress. You simply wake the way you might pause a long walk to catch your breath. For an hour, sometimes two, you lie in the dark, awake but unhurried. Some people prayed, some talked quietly with a spouse, some got up to tend a fire, visit a neighbor, or even step outside under the stars. Then drowsiness returned and you slept again until dawn. 2 sleeps, one night. Why did this change? Ask yourself what's sitting next to your bed right now. The shift began with something deceptively simple: light. As Kirch documents, the spread of artificial lighting, first oil lamps and street lighting in the 1600s and 1700s, then gas lighting in the 1800s, then electric light in the 1900s, pushed bedtimes later and later. Nights that once began at dusk began creeping toward midnight. The window for sleep shrank, and a shrinking window doesn't leave room for a leisurely hour of wakefulness in the middle. It demands one long, efficient, unbroken block because that's all the time that's left. Industrialization sealed it. Factory schedules didn't care about your body's rhythm. They cared about the whistle at 6 a.m. Sleep stopped being something your body negotiated with darkness and started being something squeezed between the demands of a clock. Consolidated, uninterrupted sleep became not just common, but morally coded as correct. Waking in the night went from ordinary to a symptom. Here's where the story gets even stranger. This isn't just historical guesswork. It's been tested in a lab. In the early 1990s, psychiatrist Thomas Ware ran an experiment at the National Institute of Mental Health. He took a group of volunteers and put them in a room with 14 hours of darkness a day, no clocks, no artificial light after sunset, mimicking the natural light conditions of a pre-industrial winter night. No modern schedule, no electric bulbs stretching the evening. What happened? Within a few weeks, the volunteers' sleep spontaneously split into two distinct phases. They fell asleep a few hours after darkness began, woke for roughly an hour of quiet wakefulness in the middle of the night, then fell back asleep until morning. Nobody told them to do this. Their bodies rediscovered a pattern they'd never consciously learned. Take away the artificial light and the ancient rhythm resurfaces almost on its own. This tells you something important. Segmented sleep isn't a historical quirk you can shrug off as how things used to be. It may be closer to your biological baseline. What you call a normal night's sleep might actually be the adaptation, not the default. So what was that gap in the middle of the night actually for? Sleep researchers who study this pattern point to something counterintuitive. That quiet hour of wakefulness wasn't wasted time. Some researchers, building on work around circadian biology by scientists like Charles Czeisler, note that the period resembles a naturally low point in cortisol and body temperature, a kind of built-in stillness before a second wave of rest. It may have functioned as a buffer, a mental resting stop between two active bursts of deep sleep, giving the brain a rare stretch of calm, low-stimulation wakefulness that today's world almost never offers. Think about how rarely you experience that now. Quiet, unlit, no screen, no task, no stimulation, demanding your attention, just your own thoughts in the dark with nowhere to be. Your ancestors had this built into every single night. You might not experience it once a month. And this is the twist worth sitting with. You didn't lose an inefficient primitive habit when you gained consolidated sleep. You lost a built in period of unstructured mental rest, a pocket of time when the mind could wander without demand, without notification, without light pulling it back toward alertness. Now think about your own 3 a.m. wake ups, the ones that feel like a malfunction. What if they aren't a malfunction at all? What if they're an old rhythm trying to resurface inside a world with no room for it? You wake, and instead of a fire to tend or a quiet hour to sit with your thoughts, you find a glowing rectangle promising 17 new things to worry about. The body remembers an ancient pattern. The environment no longer supports it. This doesn't mean waking at night is always harmless, and it doesn't mean you should try to force a two-sleep schedule into a life built around a single alarm clock. Modern sleep science still generally links fragmented, poor quality sleep to real costs for mood, memory, and health, but it does mean the panic itself, the fear that a natural nighttime waking means something is broken, may be a distinctly modern anxiety layered on top of a distinctly ancient pattern. Because for most of the time humans have existed, waking in the dark wasn't a disorder. It was simply the shape of the night, two sleeps, with a quiet hour of being human in between. So the next time you open your eyes at 3 a.m., and the room is dark and the world is silent and nothing seems wrong except that you are awake, consider a different story than the one you've been told. You are not failing at sleep. You may simply be remembering it. It's 3 a.m. and you're wide awake. And for the first time, maybe that doesn't feel like something wrong with you. Maybe it feels like something very old and very human, quietly checking in.